Okay, we are live. We are
All right.
live.
Good
Live
evening,
in the
everybody.
studio. Or is it just starting now? I don't know. I can't tell
Oh, yeah,
sometimes.
yeah. It just now opened. I've got it open too.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
just I'm just muting my website, the browser, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I can see the chat too and all that.
Oh, perfect. Perfect.
But yeah, no, we are live now. Good evening,
Yes.
everybody.
Yes, welcome. Flooded Cinema, episode 17. We're getting up there, slowly but surely. I'm joined today by Jerkley, also known as at Space Cowbean. And
Hello, hello.
today we are discussing Black Swan and Perfect Blue. So, two. I mean, I was tempted to say two femcel movies, but really only Black Swan is femcel.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a little bit of that I think at the beginning of Perfect Blue with like the stalker stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
But overall, it's really just a movie I think about like identity for the most part.
Hmm. Well, there's a lot of there's interesting similarities between these
Yeah,
two. It was a very good pairing by me, I must say.
yeah, I thought
Um,
it was funny because like I mean, a lot of most people get the joke now that a lot of your pairings are just based on the name, regardless of any thematic similarity.
yeah,
Like, what's the De Niro movie called? The Deer Hunter.
yeah.
Like Deer Hunter and Open Season. But this was funny in that both the names were similar. It's like two word titles with a color in them,
Mm,
Black Swan and Perfect Blue, but also a lot of similarities. And in fact, I just learned today. I don't know if you know this, but Aronofsky, the director of Black Swan, actually bought the American rights to Perfect Blue so that he could use elements from it in his both Black Swan and a little bit in Requiem for a Dream.
that does not surprise me at all, because yeah, Black Swan.
Yeah.
I mean,
Even the name like
yeah,
Nima and Nina, like that's,
yeah.
it's
That's a good
it's
point,
pretty on the
actually.
nose.
Yeah,
Um
I didn't realize how similar, because I hadn't actually seen Black Swan before. I just sort of knew the gist that it's like female performer goes sort of crazy schizo, so I figured it was the same sort of thing. So, but there are, yeah, a lot of similarities. Obviously, there's the doubles, um, the whole psychological horror element. But Black Swan in general, I would say there's a lot of aspects of it just that sort of just borrow from lots of other films, like not very subtly, a lot of the time.
sure. No, there's definitely a lot that pulls from it, including and I have not actually seen this movie, but I was just reading up about Black Swan. But apparently, Aronofsky had another movie called The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke that
Oh,
came out before this. I think it was the movie right before this one,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that one also has a lot of similarities. It's about have you seen The Wrestler?
No, no.
Well, the short story is very similar story, but it's about basically a wrestler
Mm,
um, at the end of his career rather than kind of the beginning where Nina is
yeah.
in Black Swan, and basically the movie is just about how his career has just taken its whole toll on him physically and financially and emotionally, relationally.
Mm,
He's this great and popular wrestling star, but in real life he's broke, you know, almost basically homeless, and doesn't have any can't form relationships, things like that. Um, so yeah, a lot of similarities there.
mm.
And I think I talked to you also about Whiplash, which was a
Yes.
movie that came
Yeah, I've
much
seen
later.
Whiplash a few times.
Yeah, I think like maybe 8 years later. I think Whiplash was 2014.
Yeah.
Um, and that one was good and was almost like mostly in the end was almost like an inverse about Black Swan. Because if Black Swan is like uh the failures of that lifestyle of like the pursuit of perfection, the pursuit of like high
Yeah.
art that demands all of your body and your mind and takes it all from you, and in the end you still you basically fail from it, you die. Whiplash is kind of a success story. It's a
Yeah.
um, he goes through hell and he actually does come out the other side and succeeds. Now, of course, Whiplash is at the very beginning of that character's career too, so
Yeah.
he could easily still end up like the wrestler, or
Yeah, yeah.
or something later on. But it was still a good, like, inspiring story. And I
Mm.
think I think a lot of directors would actually be afraid to tell something like that these days, outside of the context of like a superhero movie where it's just assumed that the
Mm.
good guy's going to win no matter how hard things are, or like a shonen anime.
Yeah.
But like Whiplash is a very real story where the guy is really just a normal human, and doesn't really possess any like invincible might or anything. He just endures, like where
Mm.
most people would reasonably quit, to the point where it's not even like if he quit he would be bad, or he would be doing something weak. um he was just so obsessed with his desire to succeed that
Yeah.
he succeeded
Yeah.
and did very well. So
Yeah.
it was a very exciting movie,
Mm.
for that.
Yeah.
But
I think we'll
but
come
let's
back
not
to
discuss.
Whiplash actually a bit later because there's some things I wanted
Yeah,
to mention regarding it.
sure.
Um, but yeah, Black Swan. So Natalie Portman is a ballerina who lives with her controlling mother and is given the chance to perform both the Black Swan and the White Swan in Swan Lake. So Odile and Odette. And basically the pressure of having to perform these two sort of polar opposite roles um, leads her to going insane, basically. And that's sort of the
Right.
movie. It's psychological horror. Um, what are your overall thoughts on it, just like as a movie?
So I thought it was all right. I think it started pretty strong. I would say my main complaint is that like a lot of the symbolism, a lot of the message was very on the nose. It was a little
Yes.
done a little ham-fisted. Like it really wasn't necessary in I think any case for her to literally turn into a swan at that part
Well, I mean, I would
in the
say that
movie.
was one thing I liked. I liked
Oh, really?
the
Okay.
body horror stuff
Okay.
quite a lot. I didn't
Maybe
like
that's
that.
just me.
Yeah,
Sorry.
well, I really found it really obnoxious. Like every second shot was her looking in a mirror, basically, or like someone in a reflection, and it wasn't like subtle or anything at all. It was
Right.
super on the
Yeah,
nose.
I think that was the thing. Yeah, it lost a lot of subtlety, um, in trying to trying to get his message out. And I think like Aronofsky does that a lot. And I haven't seen Requiem for a Dream, but I think I know the gist, and I think like from what I've heard, it works for that movie because it's supposed to be really shocking and bare, and just right there, in front of you.
Yeah,
Um, But for a movie like this, where it's supposed to be like a little bit more symbolic, uh, yeah, some a lot more subtlety could have been used. But yeah, you're right. The yeah, the like the swan, turning into the swan thing was very on the nose. All the mirrors was very on the nose.
yeah. And I felt
Like
as well that anytime there was like or like half the time when there was a scene with a lot of tension, he'd put in like a stupid jump scare, like for like a movie you'd make for teenagers. I just thought that
right.
that was like there's no I don't think there's a single jump scare really in Perfect Blue, and that like you're on the edge of your seat, particularly in the second half of that film.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I mean, there was like a few things. It was more like a soft jump scare, like
yeah,
the one I can mostly with the Me Mania character, the stalker.
yeah.
Um,
But
and
I
then
mean
like
like
the one
uh,
yeah, not like an actual jump
yeah.
scare.
Like I remember there was one bit in Black Swan. It was sort of I think about two. And this is another thing where he sort of just ripped off the shine. Well, he didn't rip off the Shining, but it was like he it's the scene. So Nina is practicing by herself, and then the lights go out, and then she goes and she walk
Yeah.
and there's like actually genuinely building tension in this scene. And then she's like, "Is anyone there?" And then there's just like a like a sting, a musical sting, and then the like warlock guy just like runs across the screen, and it just looked so stupid. I was just like, the one time they've actually got, some tension building well, they just end it with a
Yeah.
stupid jump scare like that, and then she goes and she finds, the warlock guy having it away with Mila Kunis, and I'm just like, okay, this is just okay, great. You've seen The Shining, good for you. Um,
Yeah.
you know, um, I do want to say overall, Black Swan. It's not a bad movie at all, but it's like
Right.
it's it's held back. I don't know by if it's he wanted to try and make something more mainstream and so made things more like suitable for an American audience, or if it was like he's just not that good a director. But
Yeah, I definitely had the feeling of something. So it would be something that's good if you really haven't watched, movies with any sort of
yeah,
like actual message or depth before or symbolism, and this is like a good introduction. And I think that the like obviousness of it, that's kind of what I was thinking when I was watching this. I was like, from my perspective, this is like really on the nose and obvious. But I guess if
yeah,
you would mostly, if you're a kid or just someone who had like only been watching Marvel movies or something, for a while, and this was like your first introduction, it wouldn't be bad.
no,
I
I
guess,
definitely don't want to say it's a bad movie.
yeah.
I think
It
Natalie
just
Portman
lacks certain
deserves any
things.
accolades she got for her performance because she is the best part of the movie is her performance,
Yeah,
really.
no, she was good. And I noticed like I think she like really prepared like her body for that role. You could tell she was very, on in the outfits where you see like her shoulders and
Yeah,
front of her chest, she's like very skinny and very like almost
muscular,
anorexic.
yeah, or
Right,
like
yeah, but, like
not
muscular
maybe
too,
muscular
so
is not the right word. I don't know what the word is.
no, I mean I think it is because it wasn't. I mean, she wasn't like anorexics are like actual skin and bones. Like you
Yeah,
can you
you
can
can
see
tell
the
she's
bone.
been training. That's what it
Yeah,
was.
she just has like almost no body fat, but
Yeah,
a lot of like small but tight muscles like a ballerina would have.
yeah,
So, and that's always cool to see, and I think that's one of the stronger points about what live action can do versus animated, because it's easy to make your character look however you want in an animated
yes,
movie, but it's actually like it brings some realism to it when an actor actually like does a lot of work to get into the character or to look the part. I think of like The Machinist with Christian Bale with how
yeah,
skinny he got for that. Like that's really cool, and that would not have the same effect if
mm,
The Machinist was an animated movie.
yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I think the only other thing I didn't really like about the movie as much was a lot of the cinematography was very weak. It just wasn't there wasn't that much interesting. The when they were actually doing the ballet, that looked great, but I felt like a lot of the time the cinematography didn't really change when it
Yeah,
was because I felt like the cinematography should have maybe shifted a little bit in tone when they were dancing, but it's like the same when it's dancing versus when she's walking around just in the streets or doing whatever. Like it was always this, handheld. It wasn't shaky cam, but it was clearly handheld camera.
right.
And I understood why there were a lot of these close shots because it's supposed to be a very sort of claustrophobic psychological feel to it. But then whenever there were mid distance shots, like the composition wasn't very interesting. I felt a lot of the time. Um, not to get
Yeah.
too pretentious or anything, but I'm just saying like
No, no, it's fine. I mean,
there was nothing particularly striking about like their apartment where they lived or anything like that.
right. Yeah, no, and especially, I mean, it's hard to say you're being pretentious when we're comparing this to a movie that has amazing composition and
Yeah,
like think has a lot of thought put into like every scene, especially with the colors, and we can get into that in a bit when we get more into Perfect Blue because I love the color theory of it.
yes, yeah.
Um,
Um,
but yeah, no, you're right. I think probably the idea, and maybe this was intentional, maybe not, but yeah, the like composition and the coloring of Black Swan felt very bleak, felt very imprisoning, and I think that's what you're saying with the claustrophobia.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I saw like the why that was purposeful, but like I felt when it wasn't a claustrophobic shot, it
right,
was
right,
just basically a whatever shot. It was like a TV shot.
yeah, yeah, like like there were times when they could have gone the complete opposite way, like the bar scene when she like gets all drugged up and drinks and
Yeah, and that was one
uh,
point exactly. Yeah, at the bar, that just looked like I'm watching New Girl or some like TV show.
right, yeah. Yeah, no, that was like a pretty boring scene too. It's like I think Aronofsky was maybe relying on like the lesbian stuff to make those scenes, so
Yeah, and that
it
was the
just seemed
other
like the
thing as well.
sexuality
That
of it.
was completely gratuitous. Like it didn't make any like there's sexual
Yeah,
stuff in Perfect Blue, but it all is done in it like it has very specific purpose and meaning to it, and it's
right,
gratuitous in in a way that is shocking, and it's not titillating at all, and it's not meant to be.
right.
Like it's we
Yeah,
keep jumping ahead
exactly.
to Perfect Blue, but because it's just so easy to compare the two.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, there's so many like similarities to talk about. I think
Um,
it's very easy to.
but
But
yeah,
no,
that
you're right.
the
Like
lesbian scene
it
was
was
dumb. It was just dumb.
yeah, and it was like it was really all just like different ways to make it like a coming of age story, sort of like her exploring her darker side, her more sexual side.
Yeah,
Um,
and
but
then that also
honestly,
ends with a stupid jump scare.
yeah. Well, which one are you talking about?
Is it so? Is it after the lesbian scene that she like looks up at Mila Kunis and then Mila Kunis is transformed into like
Oh,
her
yeah,
dark
yeah, yeah.
persona? Yeah,
Yeah. No, that happens a lot too. Um, yeah,
and it's like
yeah. That
I
that
think
was
that
yeah. That
another
was also
the issue with say so Perfect Blue, we get this sort of split personality thing, um, and it actually is creepy because the alternate persona, is this cute pop idol, and that's what makes it sort of creepy that this pop idol is sort of look cute characters behaving in this way, whereas in Black Swan it's just Natalie Portman dressed in black. It's not
yeah.
scary. It's just Natalie Portman just wearing like a
Yeah.
black
It's
t-shirt.
supposed to be scary because she has a doppelganger or whatever, because it's herself, and I think that's what I meant when I'm one of the things I meant when it's really ham-fisted, like,
Yeah,
uh, it's I mean they spend so much time with the director Thomas telling her she has to unleash her black swan,
yeah,
and then there it is. There's her
yeah,
her darker side. She's releasing it.
yeah,
Like, you just did exactly as you described with like hardly any subtlety, And I
yeah,
think you posted the screenshot on Twitter,
yeah.
where he's like, didn't he say something like, "The only thing holding you back is you"?
Yeah,
It's like,
and they're like looking at a mirror. She's like looking at herself in the
yeah,
mirror.
we get it. Like, yeah, they
um,
really they really just hammer those points home so often that it becomes really boring.
um, what did you think of the director character, Tomar?
Hmm. Honestly, I think. What do I think of him? I don't know. He's kind of boring, honestly.
Yeah, I thought
Now
he
that
sucked.
I think about it, because he's like he. I think he comes off at first as being really douchey and uncaring,
Yeah.
but I think that was also like a red herring, because in
Yes.
the end, it was. I mean, she was the one who wanted to succeed and would like do all these things, and I
Yeah.
think he sensed that and really just did the bare minimum to like kind of help her do that. Like,
Yeah.
he thought kissing her would unlock that. I don't think he was actually just trying to get away with kissing her. I mean, maybe part of him was, but
Yeah, that was the
um,
weird thing I thought about his role. Is like you think I'm kind of glad they didn't do this because it wouldn't have fit the themes of the movie really, like the point of the movie. But they sort of
right.
line it up that he's supposed to be this super sleazy guy, but then like halfway through the movie you realize, oh no, he's just European, basically.
Yeah, very, very true. Yeah, that's the thing is like that's just the role he plays in society. He's a ballet director. They do like, when you're in the art industry, you do crazy shit like that because you're the whole idea is to kind of transcend like, or I don't know if transcend is the right word, but basically to live against, or
Yeah,
break apart normal expectations, normal like things that are socially acceptable to do.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
so in that sense, I guess it was sort of interesting that it subverted our expectations in that way, but that kind of left me with like
but then
really not much
it's
of an
like
impression of him.
oh, he's not a sleazy douchebag. He's just nothing.
Yeah, yeah, that basically left him with like no character at the end, which is I think okay because he wasn't the focus of it.
No, but
And I think that was
he was such a central character, and I don't know what, like, I don't know how I would have. When I criticize something, I like to try and think of like how what's an idea for how I'd do it differently, but I really don't know with his character because
yeah.
the thing is, I guess he didn't want to go down a, obviously Whiplash came out later, but down a route of Whiplash where the pressure is specifically coming from the director. Like, so
Yeah.
in Whiplash, obviously we have J.K. Simmons, and his performance in that is amazing. But
Oh, yeah.
that sort of character wouldn't have worked, I guess, in Black Swan.
Yeah, probably not. Well, especially since the whole message was that she was really the one just driving herself.
Yeah,
You know, her and her mom. I think her mom majorly contributed too. Um, because her mom was kind of like I think confusing her the whole time by basically living vicariously through Nina, and to the point of kind of obsession. She had all those like paintings of her
yeah,
in her room, which was weird. But then also, like, her motherly instincts kind of kicked in near the end when she realized what her daughter was doing, hurting herself and basically going crazy. Um,
yeah.
so I thought
Um,
that was interesting because the mom, I think, was just really confused about what was going on too, and not sure how to actually do the right thing for her
mm.
um,
I
daughter.
liked I liked, yeah, aspects of the what they did with her mom. Like, I really liked that first scene where she was a bit off with the cake, where she, like,
Yeah.
got the cake, and then it's just like, oh, that's such a, like, yeah, thing that
Moment.
those, like, passive aggressive, like, mothers do. It's like, oh.
Yeah.
um I think I
Yeah, that was
found
that, that was a good scene. It was really like jarring too. I was just like, whoa.
yeah, so I wish they had have gone like a more subtle route like that with a lot of the stuff that they did, and then ramped it up. Because if the, I think it's just like when you compare like all psychological horror films, it's basically, oh, you have like 10 minutes where it's normal, then you have some sort of inciting incident, and then it's like things slowly ramp up. And I just feel like the pace, or like how they did the ramping up in Black Swan, it sort of was like a lot of stops and starts, and like kept changing. Sort of, it didn't really feel like this constant building of tension the whole time. It just sort of, it was a bit meandering at times.
Yeah.
Like, so there's the bit where she like does ecstasy with, or pills or whatever, with Mila Kunis, and nothing really came from that except for like a gratuitous lesbian scene, which nothing comes
Turned
from
out to
that.
just Yeah, and didn't even turn out to be real. Yeah, I think that is what happens when in the middle of this like psychological horror, he's also trying to tell a coming of age story. So I think the horror is taking pauses to tell that part of the story.
Yeah,
Um,
like this whole double
which
thing of like, oh, she's jealous of Mila Kunis. It didn't really go anywhere, and that's like sort of be supposed to be the whole point of the movie, based off on a lot of the advertising, at least.
Yeah, I would actually, you know what, and I thought this when we were talking about the director, um, and I think Mila Kunis's character Lily plays into this too. I think it was actually intentional that nothing happened with those because like the twist at the end
Yes,
was
yeah,
that
yeah,
it was
true.
really just her. She was her own worst enemy, and as obvious as as that twist was, beforehand, I think that's why, at the end it really wasn't any of those characters doing anything.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
that definitely felt very into. I could spot that kind of a mile away when I saw them like setting up Lily, especially as being the antagonist.
Yes.
I'm like she hasn't actually done anything
Yeah.
to Nina. Like Nina is really just getting anxious about this new girl. Like even early on in the movie, I could see that. I was like, I'm totally
Yeah.
calling it right now that they're gonna do more stuff where we think she's the bad one. Even with the drugging scene, like uh well, actually, I don't know if she actually drugged her or if that was part of Nina's like false memory, but regardless, Lily was really just trying to like have a good time in the only
Yeah.
way she knew how. Like she wasn't trying to like, make Nina do,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
go back on her ideals. She was just like, loosen up, like have some fun.
Yeah.
You look stressed, you look tense. So I I agree. It certainly made the characters
I
who
think
did fade away
that's kind of the
suffer and be
yeah.
less interesting. But I think that was intentional. That we killed off their
Yeah.
arcs for the greater purpose of
Yeah.
showcasing that this is Nina's problem.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of the opposite actually happens in Perfect Blue.
Yes.
The twist is that it's not all in Mima's head, which is really cool, I think, and much more interesting.
Yes, I really liked that in yeah, Perfect Blue. There was a couple. There was one other thing I wanted to actually quickly mention was there's if you remember the bit in Black Swan where it's towards the end she's going particularly crazy and she uh, walks into her mother's room with all the paintings and then they start talking or start like
Yeah.
screaming at her or whatever. That was in Perfect Blue as well. There's the bit where the uh, Me Mania and like all his posters of Mima are talking to him.
Right.
So I'm
Yeah, no,
assuming that was pulled from that.
probably. I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest. Um, and
Um,
I, no, I thought I had something more to say on it, but yeah, no, that definitely felt like something pulled from it.
yeah, I think you're right. It's just like that the point of Black Swan is basically we're gonna set up all these because you set up with the director, it's gonna play out this way. Oh, we set up with Mila Kunis, it's gonna play out this way. Oh, we're gonna set up with the mother, it's gonna play out this way. And then, as you say, they all sort of fizzle, and it just leaves. You know, Natalie Portman is just the like so basically the last person standing in terms of who's actually sabotaging her. And I think that while I understand that that's the point, I feel like it isn't. It's just not as interesting as other routes you can go. Or the way I don't know. It just didn't work for me for some reason.
Yeah, it's not the most interesting thing. Like it's a pretty, I mean, it's a pretty logical progression. And all three of those characters definitely like contributed, I think. I mean, Lily was mostly innocent. Tama was a little less, but still mostly innocent. Probably the mom was the one who was like most actively sabotaging
Yeah,
uh, Nina. But even near the end, like she was actually trying to do something about it and like trying to get a rein on her daughter once she realized like what was happening to her.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I don't know if there's much to say. I agree. I think there probably could have been a more interesting way um, to do that, but you know, it is what it is.
yeah,
Yeah, I agree. Even though I think that was the point, that doesn't necessarily mean I like
yeah. I
it.
think it was more like he. They were very tropey, these three sort of stories, and they could have still done the whole fizzle out thing, but they could have made them have something more unique or interesting about them. Like I liked with the mum. I mean, the mum, it's that's just sort of pulled straight from Carrie. If you've seen that movie or read that book, I suppose. Stephen King book about.
No, I know what it is, and I know I've seen like the blood scene at prom, but I don't know much else about it
Oh,
besides that.
it's like like girl raised by a single mother, and the mother is
Yeah,
overly protective. So it's very similar to that. Um,
yeah.
but I
Stephen
did
King
like the
getting based.
mother. Pardon?
I said Stephen King getting based, red
Yeah.
pilling on single moms.
Mm, um, I really liked when the mum was cutting her nails. I thought that was really
Yeah,
good, and I really liked all the body horror like nails and blood stuff. I thought that was all, and like the rash on her back.
yeah. No, that was good. Like I cringed so hard when she like pulled that long strip of skin off her finger. Like, ugh.
Ugh.
I was like that. I mean, I hate stuff like that. I hate like hangnails and all that. It just makes my skin crawl. Um,
Yeah, and I think
I
it was so yeah that was really effective. And actually, the other thing I really liked was I liked how they did Beth, Winona Ryder, as the retired or like forced to retire ballerina.
Yeah, no, that one that was good too. And I think it was another we were talking about like setting up Thomas as like the sleazeball, and Beth was supposed to, I think, be more evidence of that. But really, we don't have any proof that Beth wasn't just doing what Nina did, and just basically kind of anticipating things from him. And
Yeah,
I don't think they actually ever said that Thomas and Beth, slept together, or she had to do anything to be the star. Um, I think the idea was that she was just,
it's this outbreak. Everyone assumes that Tomar's favorite girl he's gonna be sleeping with her, and that's like pressure
right.
that she
Yeah, and
was
that just adds to everything,
yeah
that adds to the stress. Now I mean, I'm sure, especially from the moment that he kissed her, like she was thinking that, at some point he was gonna basically try to make a move on her.
yeah
And probably Beth is just a character that dealt with that same anxiety throughout her whole career, and it's
yeah.
just frazzled her by the end, you know. Uh, yeah, so no, I thought that was good. I think it was good for Nina to have like that kind of mirror to herself, like,
Yeah, this
this
is the
is where your
path I'm gonna go.
career
Yeah,
is obviously heading, and you're still gonna do it
yeah,
because it consumes her. Being a ballerina, being perfect, being the star of the show is her whole identity.
yeah.
You can also see that with how like emotionally stunted she is with all the like stuffed animals and living with her mom.
Yes, and I liked that.
Um,
I liked her room. That was like a cool bit of design. And like when she threw her toys down the chute, like the rubber chute in their building.
right.
I like that.
Yeah, that was pretty on the nose too, but a
It was
decent
on the
scene.
nose, but it was
It was, she
yeah,
was quite literally throwing away her childhood.
yeah.
Um,
I think the one thing I find annoying, or I found a bit annoying, that comes up in a lot of, it happens in Whiplash as well, and this is probably the weakest scene in Whiplash, is that she's like explaining to those guys like, oh no, ballet's beautiful, it's great, and then they're just like, no, ballet's boring, sort of thing. And then in Whiplash, there is that similar scene where
yeah,
he's talking about being a jazz drummer, and then the aunts and uncles are just like, you should play football. And
yeah,
I mean, because it's just like no one in any normal conversation is just going to be so blatantly like like that to someone that says like, "Oh, I'm a jazz musician," and then you just be like, "Jazz is boring." Like, who would say that?
yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's never happened to me. I don't think. I mean, I played jazz in high school. I was really big into the music scene. I used to play trumpet.
Oh, me too.
Um, oh, nice, nice. And I I've never experienced that, but I think it can happen. I've heard stories from people who just have really shitty, non-supportive people in their life.
Oh, well,
Who
maybe I'm
will
just
just
lucky.
Yeah, I think we might just be privileged,
Yeah.
to have at least decent people in our
Well,
lives
it's
who
not
aren't
even
gonna like.
not even necessarily supportive. It's just like I don't know. It's
Yeah,
just
just like.
it always comes across as like the director wants to comment on how high art isn't valued in you know broader mainstream society, and then rather than do that in a subtle way or an interesting way, they'll just have a scene where a character will be like, I do ballet, and then there'll be some crass character going, burping, drinking a beer, going, ballet's gay, or something like that.
Yeah, that's true. I'm sure. Yeah, maybe someone said something like sort of rude to them or sort of
Yeah.
unsupportive, and they just
I
since
just mean,
then
like,
just
I mean,
blew it out of proportion in their head.
yeah, like maybe that does happen, but I'm just saying, just from a cinema perspective, it always just comes across as very lazy to me.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
That's all.
It
Uh,
definitely like wasn't one of the stronger parts about um Whiplash, even though I love that movie. And
yeah,
so even
that's
like
just that one
Miles'
scene.
response, was like really I forget his character's name. I'm just gonna call him Miles because that's his actor.
Yeah.
But Miles, even his retort was basically just like obviously seething. Like
Yeah.
he couldn't just handle that people didn't get what he was about, you know.
Yeah.
Because he's like, well, I'd rather be the greatest jazz drummer ever, some jarhead or whatever he says. I think
Yeah.
he like insulted the idea of being a footballer or whatever his brother
Yeah.
was doing. Too. I was like, yeah, that's that's kind of you just being shitty too. So
Yeah.
nobody really
Um,
won in that.
I was trying to think what else have I got. Oh, there were like two things that made me laugh. One of them was definitely not unintentional. One of it was slightly unintentional. So and I know why they did it. So at the ending of the Swan Lake uh, story, um, the white swan kills herself and sort of jumps off the building or whatever it is. And then so in the actual auditorium of the the ballet, whatever, the theater, they just have like a mattress behind the stage, and it's literally just like a bed mattress. And that just looks so dodgy. Like you've got this big, multi-million-dollar production of Swan Lake going on, and the best thing you can get is just like a mattress like that.
Yeah, I think that's pretty common actually. Like,
Really? You surely you'd get
yeah,
like something bigger than that. Like it just looks so dodgy to me.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, the idea is like it's not about how much money they have, for production. It's just, you got to like store those things at the theater and you just drag them around everywhere. So it doesn't
Sure.
really make any sense to have like a big comfy bed. So I don't know. That didn't shock me. Maybe it's because I've like seen the back of,
Oh.
theaters,
Well,
and I know it looks very like lowbrow back there. Like it's not
oh,
fancy
fair
or
enough.
anything. And
Maybe.
honestly, like, I mean, yeah, the ballet might have like made a lot of money considering it's in the city, but considering how much of that goes to salaries and costuming and all the,
True,
renting the
true,
building space and
true.
all that, I don't think that it's not like they're rolling in dough for every little thing.
Mm,
There's a ton of stuff in those kind of productions where they
mm.
just cut costs horrendously.
I think it,
So,
it might have just been like the way that they edited it, like visually. It was just like it just cut to this like mattress, and it just made me laugh, I guess.
yeah.
The other thing I wanted to say, which I was intentionally, I was like a funny moment, was she's like backstage, and then the guy in the big warlock costume just like walks past her and just goes, "Hey," if you remember
Yeah,
that.
that was definitely intentional. It was like,
That
yeah, I
was
think that was
funny.
supposed to be Southern. That might have been ad lib too. I wouldn't
Yeah,
be surprised if like the actor was just
yeah,
decided to say hey, and they're like, keep it. That's funny.
yeah,
Um, little bit of brevity,
yeah,
or not levity, not brevity.
yeah. Um, I think that's pretty much. It's just I think in terms of like as a film, yeah. So we've complained a lot about it, but it is it's not a bad movie. Like if someone
Yeah,
says to you, "Oh, let's watch Black Swan," just watch it. It's not bad.
yeah, yeah.
Natalie Portman
No,
is genuinely really good in it. There's a lot
he
of there
is.
is good elements. It's just like it's like a
I think all
six.
the actors did a really good job, actually. I can't think of anyone's performance who was really bad. At least not that it was
No,
like
no, no, no. No one was bad.
Sebastian Sam and the other like Chud were dumb characters, but that's not the actor's fault.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, I thought Winona Ryder was really good. Mila
yeah,
Kunis. What's the name of the mom? She's someone famous too, right?
yeah. I don't
Uh,
recognize her. Oh no, I recognized their face, but I didn't know her name. But anyway,
Barbara Hershey.
mm.
I don't remember what she's been in.
Now I want to talk a little bit more about the themes before we move on to Perfect Blue.
Sure.
Because you could almost read it as like an anti-Freudian film,
Okay.
insofar as. But the thing is, I mean, because the thing is, the whole movie is about her trying to unlock this darkest aspect to herself, and it's sort of like, okay, well, is this darker aspect her real self, kind of thing? And then I was sort of seeing that as like, well, is that like her subconscious? Because they're talking about how, oh yeah, she's very good at like technically dancing, but she can't let herself go. And then there's this idea of oh well, the black swan represents, yeah, therefore this more sensual, unthinking version of yourself. Um, and then it's sort of like her trying to embody this actually just completely, obviously, it literally kills the light persona.
Yeah.
So in that, I
No.
mean, I don't know. I think I am sort of reading a bit into it for my own purposes. But it is almost at the end. It's almost like saying, I mean, it was saying it's like undergoing this like alchemical process of like trying to transmute yourself into this dark persona, or unlock this dark persona, just ultimately destroys the light persona. But that could be because her light persona was sort of out of whack to begin with. But
Right. There's definitely something to be said. The fact that when you, I, I think when I was reading like a bit of an analysis about this, and the guy was talking about how a big point of this movie is like what the ballet industry in real life demands of its dancers, um, and they were saying there he was quoting some book about like this a lot of the problems that dancers have, and they talked about something called psychological inflexibility, um, which is something that leads to a lot of stuff like depression and anxiety problems, and that can definitely be, I think, present here when you're basically like one way for a long time.
yeah.
um, Trying to change, um, can be very, very difficult. You're basically thrown into a whole different like mindset, different way of being, and that's terrifying. And I think she was thrust so quickly into that deep end that she drowned.
Mm,
Um, and that that would actually be a great segue into Perfect Blue, because something very similar happens with Mima in that.
true. There's just one last thing I did want to mention for Black Swan,
Sure.
which was the thing I did think was clever, which I did like, which is it is kind of obvious, but I did like it, was how the whole movie was kind of meta insofar as it was playing out this demented version of the Swan Lake story,
Right.
and that's
Yeah. No. That was cool.
so
And I actually, this is like a minor thing, not even really a complaint, just like something I expected to happen. I thought they could have done when I saw the rash, the scratch on her back. I thought when they had the scene later on where she lived, that would have been a great place for like a wing to like rip out, um,
yeah, that's what
you know what I
I
mean?
thought happened.
That's what I thought. I thought she was like literally opening up a wound
Uh,
to her like darker self, like
yeah.
unlocking it outside of her skin.
Mm.
Um, So, minor missed opportunity, but that was my initial thought when I saw that like scratch on your back.
Yeah.
Apparently Joseph says you're his ballerina, so that's very sweet. Thank you,
Yeah.
Joseph.
Well, ballerina is a very demanding sport, so a very demanding art form. So I'll take that as a compliment. Um, yeah, we've got
Yeah.
Cloudless has said hi. We've got Tabomba Shunkun. Some people have said hello in the chat. I don't know if anyone's still watching, but hello to everyone that said hello.
Yeah. I saw
Uh,
Green Tea posted earlier, like way earlier on the chat, like when you first announced it on Twitter this morning.
oh, really?
But I haven't seen her in this. So I don't know. But
Maybe
hello
it.
to everyone. Welcome this evening. We're just finished. I think we're just finished talking about Black Swan. I'm pretty much done with it.
Yes. Yeah, we've
And
said. Actually, this is. I wrote so much notes for this movie. Like, it's literally the movie I wrote the most notes for.
for Black Swan or
For Black
Perfect Blue?
Swan. But Black Swan.
Yeah.
I think it's just when a movie is like, uh, like sitting between a 6 and a 7 or something, and you see all these ways it could be better. You've got a lot more to note down, I guess. But when a movie is just so
Yeah.
good, like Perfect Blue, you don't write as much because it's just like you're just sucked into the movie a lot more, I think.
Yeah. I definitely agree. However, Perfect Blue is also like interesting enough where I can talk probably more about it than Black Swan.
Oh yeah,
So
I think it was just
I
more.
definitely understand. I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
I
this.
see that a lot. That's
Uh,
why the best movie reviews, on YouTube are like movies that you don't like. But
yes.
I don't know if
Yeah.
you've ever watched E semicolon R, but I love his stuff.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
He's funny.
and
He's good.
it's so great that he like only does stuff he can complain about because that's
Yeah.
where like most of the comedy is.
Yeah. Exactly. Um, Perfect Blue. So, I think so. This was the second time I'd watched Perfect Blue. I'd watched it like I don't know within the last year for the first time, and I liked it a lot. And then returning to it this time, I love it now. It's so good.
Yeah,
Um,
this is one of my like top favorite movies ever. I think I first saw it. Oh man, it must have been like at least 4 or 5 years ago, maybe even longer. Like I might have seen it in high school, honestly. I distinctly remember borrowing it from the library. Like, so I was just getting into anime, and someone recommended Perfect Blue, and I was just browsing. 'Cause I used to be a really big book nerd back in high school, so I was always going to the library. And I remember seeing it, and I was like, "Oh, I'll check that out." So I did. The
wow.
DVD from the library. That was my first time, and I've probably seen it like maybe 4 or 5 times since then.
Yeah.
Um, it's just really good. It combines like I think mostly because it combines two of my favorite things. One, which is animation. I love a good animated movie. I think there's so much you can do with animation
Yeah.
that you're just kind of limited by um, live action. And then also just like psychological thrillers in general. I
Yeah.
really like those. I'm a big fan of like the whole Hannibal franchise, even like the bad parts of it, like that
Which
Hannibal
is your
Rising
favorite
movie.
one?
I still love it. Out of the Hannibal movies,
Yeah.
probably Red Dragon.
That's my favorite as well. Yeah.
Yeah, mostly I think. I mean, Silence of the Lambs is definitely like really really strong. Um, I think I mostly like Red Dragon, maybe just because I really like Ralph Fiennes and I loved
Yeah.
him in it.
He's
I
he's really good,
a
and
good
I love
yeah
Ed Norton as well. I really like it. The blonde Ed Norton.
yeah no
It's
that
a very
that
powerful
was good.
aesthetic.
Yeah. But yeah, like a good villain definitely makes a movie for me, and like I wasn't really interested in Buffalo Bill. Like Hannibal Lecter definitely took the spot,
Yeah.
in Silence of the Lambs, which I think was the point because that was our introduction to
Yeah.
Anthony Hopkins' performance of it, and most people's introduction to just the character Hannibal.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and then Red Dragon, I think, I mean, we barely saw Hannibal, and it was much more of a story for Ralph Fiennes and Edward Norton.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So
Perfect
I
Blue.
really like thrillers. I really like animation. I think this movie is one of the rares that like really, and Satoshi Kon is great with this.
Yeah. I
Is
have to
just
watch some of it. I
pushing.
think I've seen. Well, I'm trying to think. What other movies of his have I watched? I swear
I
I've
haven't
watched them.
seen most. I saw Paprika a couple years ago, which was very good. I think that might be the only other movie I've seen. I really want to watch his other ones because
Yeah.
I don't know why I haven't because I love Perfect Blue. I like Paprika a lot. Um,
Hmm.
Paprika also has a lot of similarities to this movie, although it's a bit more like it's a much less of a like a small localized story and much bigger scope.
Yeah.
Um, and because it deals with like dreams and stuff, he could go a lot crazier with like
Ah. Okay.
the fantastical stuff. Um, this one he kind of had to keep it somewhat realistic.
Yeah.
Um, but I really like the way animation is used in this. It's really showing what it can do, particularly with like the psychosis, the transitioning between
Yes.
scenes, between realities, basically, which is super
Yes.
cool. Like
Yes.
one great example to begin with was the model show, the fashion show with all
Yes.
the cameras, and then like one of the cameras like flashes, and you zoom in on the camera, and it's actually a guy like taking pictures for a crime scene, which I think was part of the TV show
Yeah.
Double
Yeah.
Bind.
Yeah.
So just all those transitions were so cool.
Yeah.
Um, that chase scene, the way mirrors, you talked about the obnoxious use of mirrors in Black Swan. I think this movie used mirrors very well.
It used
Um,
and the animation of the reflections were so good. Like there's one shot, it's just like a super basic shot where they're in the agency office, and it's a shot. It's just me. We're looking at Mima dead on, and you see in the reflection of the cabinet behind her, the what's his name? The male agent.
yeah, the manager,
Yeah, and it just like looks so. And yeah, this movie looks so
Amaka.
good. It's Um, it's one of my favorite animated movies easily. So
Tado, Tado Koro, that's the male
yes,
agent. That's the manager. I don't remember like I guess they're both her managers sort of. It seemed like they both had like democratic control over her and they had to agree on
yeah,
where she was going. But yeah, and then Rumi was her other character.
mm.
That yeah, and her I mean her being revealed as like
Well, do
yeah
you want to
that was
reveal the twist? I mean,
oh do we? I don't know. Okay, I mean I assume if you're coming into this you
yeah.
probably assume
Anyway,
but
I'll say this much. I don't say spoiler warning that often because most of the time I don't care. But for this movie, I'm giving spoiler warning, and you should go watch it and then listen. It's only 80 minutes
yeah
long. It's like 70 something, 75 minutes long. Go watch
yeah
it. All right.
yeah it is a very good movie and I would if you haven't seen it I would definitely recommend you not listen to this because
Yeah,
there's
we'll
so
get into
many
it then. Yeah.
really good twists. So yeah, I would second that. Most movies I don't care for a spoiler warning.
Yeah,
This
like
one
Black Swan,
definitely
who
is very
cares?
spoiler heavy. Yeah,
Maybe if you're a 15-year-old girl, go watch it, then go listen.
no.
But other than
Yeah,
that, I think you'll be fine. I think you will have worked out the ending by like 20 minutes into that.
yeah, pretty much. But no, especially since like it's literally just play like you said, it's literally playing out Swan Lake. Like that's pretty much just what happens.
Yeah.
um, but no, yeah, Perfect Blue has like really brilliant um twists. Um, and
I remember the first time I watched it, I was just like, "What like, what the f?" When it gets
yeah,
to the
no,
ending, I like did not see it coming at all. And when you go back and rewatch it, it's very subtle, but it is there, like the elements of it, like predicting it.
yeah. No, it's very masterfully crafted. Mimania-san, the stalker, he was a fantastic red herring. I think because he was, first of all, I just love the character design. He is
Yes.
so creepy looking. It's actually insane. And even right to the end, like the part where she knocks him out,
Yeah.
and she when she swings the hammer and he doesn't even flinch. It's like she like smacked a statue.
Yeah.
It was just a loud thud. I was like, jeez, this guy, can this guy possibly get any creepier? Is he even human? You know? But he was a fantastic red herring. I think, you know, even from right at the beginning when he's like
Yes.
doing that really weird hand
Yes.
gesture to make it look
Yes.
like from his perspective that she's dancing in his hand
Yes.
like a little toy.
And
I
yeah,
was like he
the shot composition and everything, like there's not a single, there's like maybe one or two shots where it's sort of slightly, just I wouldn't say it's a bad shot, but it's like it's economical. It's like, oh, it's a quick shot or whatever. But pretty much everything you could take a screenshot of pretty much half of the, well, 90% of the movie, and it would be a good like wallpaper for your your computer.
Yeah, no, it's really well shot. And the use of color is really great in it. Do you want to talk about that for a bit, actually,
I haven't
or
thought
should we
that
talk about the
much.
plot?
Uh we'll do a bit more of the plot, I suppose. We'll get it started.
I do want to talk, and I have been like, especially like looking into this. There's multiple colors, I think, with multiple meanings in it.
I have
Um,
not, but I'm
I think-
happy for you to, we can discuss that. But we'll just get into the plot. So
yeah,
pretty much we are following Mima, Kiroege Mima, I believe is her name,
yeah,
and she's a pop idol of like a B tier or C tier pop group. Um, and her agency and her have sort of decided, okay, well, maybe she'll, instead of being part of this pop group, she'll try and be an actress. And that's sort of the impetus of the whole film, is her leaving her pop group to become an actress and like what that entails. And
yeah.
fans of her from the pop group feel betrayed, and
I also think it's worth noting, and this also goes to this is where the coming of age elements come into Perfect Blue. Is that the decision to be an actress really wasn't motivated by any like strong desire, like
yeah,
any passion to be an actress. It was really just an economic decision. You
yeah,
know, like she basically just listened to her manager who said that, this is a smart decision for your career, and
yeah,
she she wanted to do what was good for her career, and Rumi clearly said that and I think her mom may have said that, maybe mostly just Rumi, who said that she came to Tokyo to sing. Basically, that was her
Yeah.
passion, that was her dream, and now she's basically giving up what was her dream. It was very fun and lively for her for a long time for something that is smarter, but ultimately a scary decision for her. Something very different, and that comes with a lot of like challenging um, parts to it too. Uh,
Mm.
and that's kind of what leads her down this psychosis, or what part of what leads her down the psychosis is just that break from like, what am I doing versus what do I want to do.
Yeah. And I
And
just want to, I'm not sure how much, because I haven't looked into it that much, but I just thought it was interesting them saying, like, oh, there's no money in being a pop idol. Like, is that just a thing of the late 90s? Because I feel like now there's money in, or was it, I don't know, like, I don't understand. Was he just saying that because their group wasn't doing well, or?
possibly, I don't know enough about like the culture of Japan to say, but I mean, it would make sense that in the late 90s that stuff would um, start becoming less popular with the internet gaining traction. There's more
Mm.
stuff to do. Video games are becoming more developed at this point. Um, Japan's like pop culture history is also kind of weird because I think they're like a decade behind us usually with this stuff. At least in the previous decades they were. So it's hard to say, but it definitely wasn't profitable for her what
Yeah.
they're doing. But then there was like the big irony, which I think further contributed to her identity issues and like wondering if she did the right thing, where
Yes.
the idol group without her became much more successful, um, and I'm sure that was like a bitter pill to swallow.
Yeah.
But she had already burned that bridge, with all the scenes she had done. So that I'm sure that contributed a lot to the stress too. So yeah, there's definitely some like ironies. I don't know if it's necessarily true that that wasn't profitable, but
Yeah, I
it
just thought that
doesn't
was
really matter.
interesting. I really,
Yeah.
anyway, yeah.
It doesn't really matter because functionally it just needed to be true for the story.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
um, and I mean, you could always make any comment about that, and it'd
Mm.
be true. Um, but yeah, so she becomes an actress, um, and we start, and I think I actually will just talk a little bit briefly about the color, and I think
Go
we
for
can
it. Go for it.
point out more just to get a basis on like what the different colors represent, and then we can kind of point out like where those scenes happen.
Okay, yeah,
But
go for it.
the way I see it, so and this is my interpretation, and also like based on from what I've read some other people, but blue in the movie generally kind of represents her. It can either represent her stability, like mental stability of either her or other characters, and it can also just represent her new life as an actress.
Mm.
Uh, I think stability tends to be the more sane. Like we see at the beginning, when she's like in her room tearing down her poster, like getting ready to start this new life. She's wearing like a blue outfit.
Yeah.
Um, there's a few other scenes. Red is actually very prominent in this movie, despite it being called Perfect Blue. Um, and red, you see that a lot, and I think you posted the picture on Twitter of her with like the red book. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of scenes where like the poster in her room or like the bathroom where she's arguing with her like imagined self,
Mm.
things like that are just flooded with red, and that tends to represent like her degrading
Yes. Yeah,
insanity.
that makes sense.
So like,
Yeah,
yeah,
like
it can also
the script
represent.
being in red, yeah, perfectly makes sense.
Right, yeah, 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 her descending into insanity, and also just sort of represents idol Mima, this phantasm
Mm.
she's created. Um, and then there's another interesting one, and that's white. White is used pretty sparingly in the film, and it can have, I think, a couple of different meanings, but usually I think it actually means just the full descent, like the actual complete loss of reality.
Yeah,
And
well,
we see this a
in
couple of
Japanese
times.
culture, I believe white is strongly associated with like death or something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like even just the death of the self or of the mind.
Yeah.
Um, but there's a couple of like really iconic scenes where that's used. One is when she's always like when she's in her like cycle of waking up and not knowing what's real.
Yes.
She always wakes up. She's very pale. She's on a white bed. That's a good example. And then also, especially with Rumi's scenes near the end,
Yeah.
like scenes where the truck is about to hit her, and you
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
that bright, blinding light. And then also at the very end, the epilogue scene when Rumi's in the hospital
Yeah.
and she looks at the reflection and sees herself as Mima. That meme is completely surrounded by like blinding light.
Yeah. And then of course the very end of the movie is um, pans up to the blue sky.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, kind of like a return to stability. Now, the other interesting thing is that her car in the epilogue is like bright red, and I don't really know what to make of that.
Mm.
Honestly, that might show that someone has said it's a way for her to like basically unite the halves. If you take it more that
Yeah.
blue represents her new self and red represents her old self, that makes sense. So that
Yeah.
might lend him a little bit more credence, but I also like the idea that it's a progression, like blue to red to white to black to back to blue.
Mm. And
Um,
yeah, and also at the end, it's implied that her acting career has taken off.
right. Yeah, heavily implied.
Mm.
Some people have said that the red car is actually a sign that she's still crazy, and actually that whole scene is in her head. Like she thinks she's an actress now, a famous actress. And I thought that was sort of interesting. I don't know if it has a lot of weight um, for that theory.
But I don't know,
Uh,
because I don't know.
it seems a bit of a stretch.
I mean, maybe. Um,
I don't know, but
I mean, I just
I
don't want
feel
that to be true because I like her too much. It would make me too sad.
yeah. I mean, and Satoshi Kon, I was reading an interview about this movie, and he was saying, he's basically leaving it up to the fans. They can think what they want, and he's given credence to a lot of like fan theories too. He's like, oh, that's an interesting way to look at it. To
Mm.
him, the true objective reality doesn't really matter too much because the movie is all about like objectivity and subjectivity being so intertwined.
Yeah.
You know, like there's a lot of scenes that we still don't really know what happened. The scene where,
Yes.
basically, like the figmented idol Mima goes to sing with the Cham group,
Yeah.
um, and it's like okay, if that's Rumi, you know, why did no one be weird about it? Why do they all act like it was actually Mima when we know for a fact it's not really her?
Mm.
And why if it was really Mima, why did the two girls look so concerned? So that scene doesn't really make much sense. It could all just be
Mm.
completely imagined by Mima, and that's probably the theory that makes the most sense.
Mm.
Except that I think she posted Rumi posted in Mima's room that website,
Yeah.
that she was so glad to sing. So it's like nothing like totally makes sense with how that scene happened, but I think that's
But
part
I
of the
think
point,
because the Mima's room is written by Me Mania, right? Or is it?
No,
No, no. Oh, it's
I
written by
believe it's written by
Rumi.
Rumi. Yeah. Yeah, that was another thing. So Rumi's descent into insanity kind of started with, well, it started a long time ago when she basically aged out of being an idol.
Yeah.
Um, unlike unlike Mima, she didn't even really have a choice to like go into a more successful career. She basically just aged out of it, and now she's in like a very labor intensive job, basically watching other younger girls do what her dream was. You know,
Mm.
so that's where her thing kind of started, and then she was living vicariously through Mima for a while. But when then Mima wasn't going to be an idol anymore, I think she had a little bit of a break there in her psyche.
Yeah. It
Um,
upset her,
but
and then it was when she did the rape scene. That's like basically. I'm assuming that was when
yeah,
she
yeah,
completely
that was
broke.
that was a big break for both of them. I think actually all three. That's the interesting thing is like all three of the Mima, Rumi, and Mimania, like
Yeah.
are all their psychoses are like so intertwined, and I think that's what makes it a really cool movie as a psych thriller because. It's one thing to do a movie like Black Swan where it's all in one person's head, but to have this like very specific, intricate case of mass psychosis is like really cool. I think that might be the right term for it because you've got yeah, it's all like feeding on each other, you know?
Mm.
Like Rumi basically needs to live out her fantasy of being an idol, and she did that through Mima, and then when Mima wasn't the idol, she became Mima.
Yeah.
And then Mima is facing a bit of an identity crisis at the beginning. The real Mima is facing one where she's not sure what she's doing now, and feels like feels like that was a whole other life that she gave up, and then when she saw Mima's room, she started believing there was like another
Yeah.
Mima living this life that she had given up. And then there's Mimania, who also needs Mima to be an idol. He needs to idolize her. Um,
Mm.
and then when the real Mima doesn't live up to his expectations, Rumi comes along and fulfills that need for him.
Yeah.
And and they're all just like in this tight cycle of insanity and stress and anxiety, and it's honestly crazy how like well it's crafted. It's something that would probably never actually happen in real life. I mean, I don't know. You've got like the Manson case, so maybe something like that could happen, but but I think
It's an
that
interesting case for sure.
yeah, and I think that's what makes like the twist so damning too, because it's like you would have never expected like another person to be part of this like
Yeah,
psychosis,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
Because
For a while, it just seems like Mimania is like stalking her, and she's facing the stress of that and all the stuff she did, and it's just making her crazy. And then like there's actually some realism to the craziness. She's not just completely imagining this idol
yeah, yeah,
Mima. It's actually someone else also imagining it, and it's crazy.
yeah,
And I think they said as much in one of the double bind scenes where the female detective or doctor, whatever she was supposed to be,
yeah,
um, said like, what if the illusion found someone else to possess? That I think
yeah,
that was our big clue that there was another person here,
yeah,
because
yeah,
Mimania like didn't see himself as Mima's persona. Although you could argue he sort of did, just he saw it outside of himself, you know.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But that wouldn't explain who was emailing him.
And I love the way that it intertwines the plot of the show she's working on,
Yeah.
and like in a way that it makes you think, oh, is working on this show, coupled with everything else, is that like driving her insane to, and like, is she becoming like her character on the show? And because on the show she's playing someone with multiple personality that thinks that they're like a famous actor.
Yeah, no, that was really cool, and I think that was something else. That was another thing that Aronofsky pulled to do Swan Lake. Although, the difference being is that Double Bind is a completely fictional show,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
Satoshi could basically do whatever he wants with it
yeah,
and make it match. Whereas we kind of already know what happens with Swan Lake.
yeah.
They even if you don't know ballet, they say it literally the whole
Yeah, and
plot
that
of the
was
movie at
another
the
thing
beginning.
I thought was a bit. I mean, it's not. I'm not like, because I didn't know the plot of Swan Lake, but it was just like,
Right.
let's take 30 seconds to explain this plot of Swan Lake, because we're assuming no one that is going to watch this movie actually knows the plot of Swan Lake, which is
Which is fair
true.
because I didn't
But
know it either, but that's not even really the problem. The problem is just that I think he limited himself by basically making it about Swan Lake.
yeah,
Whereas, with Double Bind, he can really make it
exactly.
whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
it was cool that from like even the very beginning, where like Mima's only line was "Who are you?" In a whole
yes,
movie about
yes,
identity and not knowing who she is or who
yeah,
that was really significant all the way to the Double Bind show actually basically showed us the end of the Perfect Blue movie before the actual end. That scene where
yes.
she like looks in the mirror and she's like
I'm an
yes,
actor.
I'm meme, or yeah, I'm an actor. And then at the very end when she looks in the mirror and says yes, I know I'm real,
Yeah,
that was basically a prefiguration for it.
yeah.
um
And
so that was
I loved
really
how
cool.
there's like that. So the first time they, maybe this, I don't know if this is the first time they do it, but so they intersplice like her hallucinations with real life, but then they also add another level of, they intersplice scenes from the show that they're filming. So there's that one bit where a guy comes up to her and is like, "Oh, you're a pretty girl. Are you a model? Like, do you want to be part of my modeling agency?" And you think like how it's done is, you think that this is actually a guy coming up to her on the street, but then it pulls back and realizes, no, this is her acting as the act, as the character, and the other guy's an actor as well coming up to her. If you remember that bit, that's like early on.
Yeah, I don't remember that being part of the show. I thought that was real. That's how she got to do the. That's how she was doing the nude photography. I thought that's what that was.
No, that was
Was
part of
that
the show.
was that a? Oh, okay, interesting. Well, and that just shows that like something like that actually did happen to her, though.
Yeah,
Obviously,
yeah,
'cause she got the photography gig. That was something that was pretty clear that really happened because Me Mania, went crazy and like bought all the
yes,
magazines and stuff.
yes,
So yeah, but yeah, no, you're right. It's like three layers of reality. You've got even four if you count like our reality as being outside the movie. You've got
yeah,
the double bind show, the reality in the movie, the delusions in idle Mima, and then we're out here like
yeah,
watching, trying to watch all this and trying to like see how it all ties or
yeah.
what even is real.
And
And
I
that's the
really
whole.
I like how it is very subtle how it blends these things, and it's not done in a like so long as you're paying relatively close attention, you can follow what's going on. Like
Yeah,
it's not like a I don't know, like a David Lynch film or something like that, where it is there's
yeah.
cryptic things about this movie, but it's not so you know you wouldn't
Right.
call.
It,
I mean, it
it
is
it's
surreal, but you wouldn't call it surrealist. Maybe is like a way to
right.
try and put it.
I would say it's disorienting, but not
Yes.
like esoteric, not cryptic.
Yeah.
Like David Lynch will just do stuff that only makes sense to him.
Yeah. Which I love about
um,
him, but yeah, I'm just
and
saying.
probably doesn't, and probably he'll do a lot of stuff that also doesn't make any sense to him. He just
Yeah.
like has a feeling and goes with it. Which is fine if you like David Lynch, and I can enjoy some of his stuff because of that. But yeah, no, Satoshi Kon, I think it was really just an exercise in disorientation.
Mm.
The mingling of subjectivity and objectivity, um, which was a big part of the whole point. So I think that worked really well. The idea wasn't to like make something unfathomable; it was just to confuse you for a while.
Yeah.
And I think it did a great job, even from the beginning. Like it was pretty disorienting. Like it kept switching from her like last performance um,
Yes.
as an
Yes.
idol singer to like just her now regular
Yeah.
life.
And I wanted to
Um,
mention that as like a piece of excellent direction is he's setting up. Uh, it's like a tutorial level in a video game where they set up like, oh,
yeah,
here's how things are gonna work in the game. It's like he does a really good job obviously in this
it,
movie of like setting up, okay, here's how things are going to jump around a bit, and he does it the first few times. It's very very obvious, and then as the movie goes along, once you're like much more clued into how that operates, yeah, it picks up, and there's just such an organic build of tension, and there's no stupid scenes or any there's no real point where things just slow down needlessly or like change tone or pace in a weird way. Like
yeah.
it's so good.
No, definitely. I mean, the pacing is like really good in it. And also I think the doing that jumping those jump cuts so early on also just kind of shows, that like the psychosis didn't just happen out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It started with her having these like anxieties about basically living a new life now,
Mm.
and still recall, you could even say all those scenes of her last concert was just flashbacks. She was just having a lot of flashbacks because it
Yeah.
was something that was heavy on her mind. She just made a huge life decision for herself, and
Hmm.
that's when that idea of a double life, a double identity, like started. Even though she was calm about it because she was still in control of like what was real, you know
Yeah.
and even we as an audience like could tell like, oh, obviously these are just memories, these flashbacks are just switching between scenes. And then it gets crazier later when neither Mima nor the audience know what's actually happening, when
Yeah.
is it happening, who's doing it. There's so
Yeah.
many questions. Yeah. And I think that's why it's not esoteric, because really the only question is a question of like identity and time,
Mm.
Like who is doing this, when is it happening, and did it actually happen? It's not really
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah. What
it's
does
not even
this
really like
mean? Yeah.
what is happening. Like we know
Yeah.
what's happening, even if
Yeah.
it's not real. Like someone's getting killed or something bad's happening or she's
Yeah.
doing scenes like they're all very like ordinary things, I guess, for a thriller, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And I love the I love the violence in this movie. Like the way it's done is so good. Like the scene of the photographer when he gets attacked is so good.
Yeah, no, that was really cool. And also I was just reading about this. The guy I was reading pointed this out that the photographer he was watching the scene in double bind that was describing what was just about to happen. Um,
Yes.
and what's cool is that he wasn't watching it on like a TV screen. He was projecting it onto the wall, so that
Mm.
when because it was actually Rumi killing him, right?
Yeah.
And so when Rumi was killing him, Mima was literally being projected onto
Onto her.
her.
Damn.
I was like, that is it's subtle but so cool. Like that's such a nice little detail.
Yeah. See,
Um,
that's why I like movies that have lots of little things like that
yeah,
versus we keep shitting on Black Swan, but yeah, like Black Swan where it's just like you've got it's like okay, here are all of our symbolisms and we're going to make it very obvious each time one of them comes up because this is symbolism.
right.
Symbolism is
Yeah,
about making it obvious that something means something. So, anyway,
yeah. No, no, I agree, and I think like I'm not gonna apologize for shitting on Black Swan because that's like kind of the point. It's Aronofsky basically just pulled from a really good movie and just made something not quite as good. And I think it's fair to show those comparisons,
yeah,
And to me, it just shows why Perfect Blue is so good,
yeah,
People like sometimes get annoyed with me. They're like mostly like normie friends. They're like, you're too negative and critical about movies. Can't you just enjoy something? It's like I can enjoy good stuff better if I know what to pick apart
yeah,
from the like mediocre or just okay stuff,
yeah. Also,
or the
criticizing
bad
stuff
stuff.
is fun. Like,
Yeah, exactly. It's also really fun. I think someone was saying how what was the new thing? Someone was like, I think it was like Avatar or the new Cowboy Bebop or something. Um, and they're like, man, can't we just enjoy things? I'm like, this is me enjoying it. I like
yeah,
making fun of stuff. It's
yeah.
fun,
That's a good point.
and it makes me, like I said, it makes me think about stuff that's actually really good better. It makes me appreciate
Yeah,
it more. Like
yeah.
the projection stuff is really cool. They also made a point like whenever Rumi killed someone, she almost always went for the eyes, and then
Mm,
also with the photographer, she like stabbed him in the crotch too. And I think that was
yeah,
just basically her way of saying like she thought like everyone lusting after Mima with their eyes, and then also this guy more directly by taking new photographs of her.
yeah.
She's basically stabbing at that.
Mm,
So that was really cool.
yeah,
A very very good scene. That was probably honestly one of the best scenes in the movie was the killing of photographer.
yeah.
It was so intense. There was a lot of symbolism behind it.
Directed
Um,
so well as well.
yeah, yeah. No, very
And
very
that's
very good.
interesting. Yeah, at one point she stabs him through the broken glass.
Yeah.
I wonder
No,
what.
that was
I don't know.
cool.
I have to rewatch. I should have watched this movie like twice before discussing it, probably. But
Yeah.
whatever.
Oh, and
It's
another thing I noticed, or rather that I read. I didn't notice it myself when I watched, but uh, so plagiarism here. But so when Mima wakes up after that happens, this was actually a trick to the audience. So she looks at her hands as if she imagined, or as if she was there.
yeah,
Like she remembers killing the photographer, but she didn't, and she didn't even know he was dead until like the news broke, until she got the phone call or saw the TV.
yeah.
But what she was actually looking at her hands for was the scene that literally took place the night before when she broke the teacup in her hands and was bleeding. That's why
Right.
she was looking at her hands. But it's a trick to the audience because
Yeah,
Satoshi placed it right after we saw the photographer getting
yeah.
killed.
So we assume that she
And it's like,
dreamed that or hallucinated that, where she didn't
yeah.
even. Yeah.
Or
No.
if you didn't know the twist, we assume that she actually did it. You know,
Yes.
we
Yes.
that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to be like, oh, she's now finally so insane that she's actually killing. It's not
Yeah.
Mania, because I
Yeah.
think it was assumed. I think it was assumed the whole time that Mania was doing all the killings, but I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure Rumi did all of them.
Yeah.
Mania was basically. mostly harmless if not threatening.
Yeah.
Well, I think he hurt the heckler. He ran over the heckler. I think that was him.
Yeah.
He may have sent
The
the
mail
exploding
bomb.
letter. Yeah, I'm not sure though. That could have been either or. And then it was, it was obviously him that attacked her at the end, attacked Mima.
Mm.
Um, I assume. I don't think that was Rumi. Um, but yeah, so no, and like I said, he was a fantastic red herring.
Yeah.
Like so well made.
And I liked as well that the red hair, the sort of semi red herring of the plot of Double Bind. You think, because you think the red herring is that you think it's going to apply to Mima, when in fact it does apply to Rumi in the end. Like, I mean, we've said that, but
Sure.
yeah.
Well, it also applies to Mima because like their delusions are feeding on each other. Like Mima actually
Mm.
does start to develop multiple personality disorder, just not as severe as Rumi's.
Yeah.
And Rumi really feeds that. And I think they both come like really close. They both come really close to that edge, and Rumi's already a little bit past it. And I think that scene was resolved like very near the end of the final fight, like um, when when Mima's being chased. Um, she like looks at a window, and then Rumi comes at it, and she in the reflection she's idle Mima,
Yeah.
and then she breaks the window with the umbrella, and they have that like choking scene where
Yeah.
Mima declares, "I am Mima. It doesn't matter if I'm an idol,
Yeah.
you know, or an actor. Like I'm just me. It doesn't matter."
Yeah.
Whereas and then Rumi, that was showing Mima coming back from that brink.
Yeah.
And then Rumi, of course, has just completely gone over it, and she's like, no, you're an imposter. She's projecting
Yeah.
what she deep down knows about herself, because part of her does know that she's not the real Mima.
Yeah.
And so she's projecting that onto the actual Mima, like you're just a
Mm.
dirty old imposter. Um,
Yeah.
so
And
that was
I
really
love
cool.
the reveal. So it's after she's been attacked by Mimania. Um, she
Yeah,
thinks she's in her room, but then if you're paying close attention, you realize, oh, this isn't, like, the fish are alive or as well in the tank. Oh,
yeah. So that one was kind of cool. So the she actually imagined that her fish had died in that scene
oh
after
right,
the
yeah,
rape scene. So what had actually happened is Rumi stole her fish,
yeah,
and yeah, and brought him to her apartment. Um, because you can see after she sees like the whole rape scene is about her basically killing off her old self. She's burning the bridge to ever being an idol again. This was the
yeah,
point of no return, and she feels a loss of innocence, quite literally, because it was a rape scene and
yes,
a very intense one. Um, Quite literally a loss of innocence, and so she imagines the fish as being dead to represent her
yeah,
her dead old life, when in fact in I think a few frames after that, or minute after that, you turn back to the tank and there's just two living ones. Like
yeah,
there's obviously a bunch gone, but none of them are dead.
yeah,
So that was really cool. But yeah, no, that reveal, like I'm taking you Mima's room. Um,
yeah,
it's like so sinister in context, and just like the realization that it like wasn't right, that it was like an imperfection of you know what the real Mima was so cool, and so like well tied into what was going on in Rumi's head.
yeah. And then you see Rumi in the idol costume, and it's just so grotesque.
Right.
And yeah, I really love that ending. And then there's the chase scene through through the city, which is great. And
Yeah. No, there were like two really good, you're talking about like the grotesqueness of it, and that I think that's part of the break too. Like she just can't deal with the fact that she's not a young, beautiful woman anymore.
yeah,
And you see like there's like one little scene where um real Mima is being chased and idol Mima is like daintily prancing after her, but then you see the reflection, and it's
yeah,
just
yeah,
like a
yeah,
sweaty, heaving woman just barreling after her. I was like, oh, that is That is really good. And then I think like right at the very end when Mima pulls off Rumi's wig, and Rumi like just like totally loses it, and she
Yeah,
like dives after it, so focused on the wig, so focused on
yeah,
keeping up the persona that she doesn't even think about the glass, and then she's just sitting there staring at her like basically
yeah,
the fractured reflection of her real face before it's covered by blood. That is such a cool scene. Like
yeah.
so masterfully done.
And I think then there's uh, Mima then sort of rescues Rumi by pushing her out of the way of the truck.
Right. Yeah, that was really cool too, and that was another good example of like the blinding white.
Mm.
Actually, what was really great was so she gets pushed out, or she like kind of stumbles out in the street. She like the scene where she like turns back to her and smiles with like her bloody face. I don't know if
Yeah,
there was a lot of meaning behind that, but it looked really cool, and I think that's used as like the cover art a lot because it's such an iconic look.
yeah,
And then so the truck's approaching. She smiles and like pirouettes, like she's on stage, and she's
yes,
surrounded by blinding light. And then in like the last like second before Mima pushes her out of the way, the lights dim and you see the reality of the front of the truck about
yeah,
to hit her. Like that's such a really cool sequence. You see her delusion, and then you see the reality just right there next to each other.
yeah. And I think
Very
that's sort of indicative of the fact that Mima, I would say at least, did regain her sanity. Is she had this redemptive moment of saving Rumi, I guess. Like she understood that there was a distinction between uh,
sure.
reality, because she understood the reality of what was happening in that moment.
Yeah, and I think that's what I was saying with like, because right before that was when they were choking each other out, and like Mima established her identity. She came back from the
Yeah,
brink, and Rumi just fell off,
yeah,
and that had like shown that right there. And I also just think like that also probably happened with the reveal, with Rumi coming out in the idol
yes,
costume. That
yeah,
that that's when Mima realized it wasn't all in her head, that Rumi was actually,
yeah,
contributing a lot to this, and she now had an actual face to put to, the idol Mima that had been haunting her, and she just
mm,
assumed might have been the real her. But now she has like the full evidence right in front of her that it wasn't.
yeah. Um, yeah, and then we're pretty much at the end of the movie, and so Mima is visiting Rumi at a mental hospital.
Yep.
Um, and there's one little bit I loved is so she's wearing the sunglasses and her hair's all different, and she walks out, and then the two nurses are like, "Oh, that can't be her. It must just be a look-alike," and it's just sort of, it's a
Oh
little
yeah.
joke about this sort of still this mistaken identity type thing.
Yeah, I didn't catch that. No, that's good.
Because like, oh,
It's
yeah,
another one like looping right over background at the beginning. That was a like nod that most people probably didn't even think was the very very beginning scene. The Powertrons, like the show that was basically just
yes,
opposite across cam, was three people in masks. Uh, it wasn't a particularly deep, but even that was like a nod to what was
mm,
about to happen in the film. You've got three people all wearing masks, and I think the villain they were fighting was like Lord of Bugs or something.
mm,
And Satoshi Kon actually said this. He actually said like that was sort of like about the bugs in your identity and your psyche, the flaws.
ah, that's
Um,
interesting.
so that was cool, and it's like it's such a minor scene that you wouldn't even think that had that it just seemed like that was just setting up a lighthearted uh,
Yeah,
intro to the setting, showing that this is 80s Japan or 90s Japan in the entertainment business, but it also was a slight nod.
mm,
And the Powertrons, two of them were blue and red, and I think it was green. I think green had some place in the movie, going back to color. I'm not sure what it meant, but it does appear a couple times. The third member of Cham is green, and the others are like pink and blue. And
yeah,
then the lights that flash behind Mima slash Rumi when she's killing the photographer are red, blue, and green.
mm,
I'm not really sure what green means outside of that. And I think the walls of the mental facility were green except
Yeah.
for the reflection where
The
she
only
sees
other
idle Nemo.
green I can think of is like when she's grocery shopping and she holds up the cabbage or whatever.
Yeah. So it might just be there for contrast. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I couldn't see any like symbolic meaning from it. It seemed a little intentionally placed, but I don't know. But that was just
Yeah.
something I wanted to pick out too. But yeah, the Powertrons, I think the masks and the fact that there were three of them definitely played a role in it. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
the
yeah. This
three
notion
people
of,
in the
yeah,
series
hidden
being like masked
identity.
like
Okay, we're back.
that. Yeah, I can still hear you. Okay, yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Stream looks back too.
Stream's back. Okay. Excellent connection now. Okay, successfully connected. Okay, we're back.
All right.
Sorry for the interruption there. My internet just went kaput for like 30 seconds. What was I saying? Oh yeah, that's interesting. We were just about to talk about the themes of Hollywood, well not Hollywood, but entertainment exploitation, and the internet cuts out. But
How about
that's sort of
shut it down?
I think like we've talked mostly about I guess the quote unquote deeper themes of Perfect Blue, but we didn't really touch on the superficial stuff, just about I guess idol worship in general and exploitation in the industry, and I just wanted to specifically I guess talk about the the rape scene for lack of a better word. Um, it's probably one of the most confronting rape scenes in a movie that I've seen, and it's ironically not
Yeah.
even technically a rape scene.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I did read in that interview that Satoshi Kon actually regrets
Mm.
making it so intense because
Yeah.
in his mind this was just going to be an OVA. He did not expect this movie to take off like it did.
Okay.
So he was assuming that he was going to have to make it more shocking for a smaller audience, who
Uh,
wants to see that sort of thing. So that's kind of interesting, but I think its intensity is like what makes it so powerful, Like it is supposed to represent something very traumatic for all three, really, for Rumi, Mima, and Mimania-san.
yeah.
Uh, both three like had huge negative reactions to that. And I think the like depravity of the scene really highlights that.
Yeah. And yeah, it is just yeah really confronting, I suppose. And then you also have the photographer who and her agent is sort of saying, oh, you agreed you do this, and I guess you see all this pressure that all these young girls get put through. Um,
Right. And I wanted to say this about, comparing it to Black Swan, not in a negative way, but just like if Black Swan is Nina's, pursuit for perfection driving her to insanity, um, for Mima in Perfect Blue, she's not even trying to be perfect. She's just trying to have like a normal, successful career.
yeah,
She's not looking to be star of the world. She's just kind of a scared little girl who, you know, it doesn't has no experience to do any other kind of work. So she's in the entertainment industry, and this is like the kind of things you just do as your normal job. And there's
yeah,
not even any guarantee if she does do these scenes that she's going to be famous. Um,
yeah,
so that's kind of interesting, is that like, she's not even really driving herself. Um, yeah, she's not really driving herself to do any of this except just to not disappoint the people who, want her to do it. Just succumbing to pressure, basically,
yeah.
external pressure.
It's very much she's just sort of caught up. Like she went to Tokyo to be a pop star, um,
Right.
and there's obviously I guess there would be exploitation as well with being a pop star, but I guess for this narrative's sake at least, pop star is sort of shown to be much more of an innocent profession, I suppose.
Yeah, it's the
Than
safer choice.
yeah, and I guess it's also specifically the kind of actress, like the roles that she got. I guess initially was and the way how it just worked out initially. Um, yeah, it was just these the rape scenes she had to do and stuff. So
Right. And there's also, well, there's like pressure coming from two different directions. You know, not only is she pressured from the top down to, you know, do things she's uncomfortable with,
yeah,
and you know, do like very adult things when she's been very childlike before now.
yeah,
Um, but also there's pressure from the fans, you know, namely in Me Mania, but I'm sure there were lots of other fans who, you know, there was
yeah.
all those guys always making snide remarks about her,
Mm,
um, everyone criticizing her. Um, and then you could even say that Rumi was a fan that
yeah.
you know went too much. And did you know this is actually, so it's not confirmed that Satoshi Kon actually took inspiration from this from a real life event, but it's so similar it's hard not to imagine that it didn't influence him. But have you heard of the pop singer Selena?
No.
She was a Latin American, like Mexican, I think. Singer, but yeah, something very similar happened. She, you know, basically became like a huge success for a while, and she had this one fan, named Yolanda, who basically like became her manager. She called the manager, you know, or I think Selena's father, who was her manager at the time, like 15 times, begging to like make a fan club and be in charge of the fan club, and basically like worked her way because she was so obsessed with Selena. Um, you know, working her way so close into her life, and then when like a guy was in Selena's life and taking more of attention, Yolanda shot her, and this happened in like 1995.
Wow.
Um, which I think is 2 years. Perfect Blue is 1997, I think, right? So 2 years before.
Yes. Yes.
So it's such, and they even like look so similar. It's crazy. Like it's the same kind of dynamic of a
Wow.
young, beautiful pop singer and like an older, portly woman. You know, it's crazy. Yeah, if you just look up like the singer
I'm
Selena, you'll
having a
see.
look now. Yeah. That wow. That's horrible.
So that's yeah, no, it's awful. And unfortunately, this is more common than I think people think, is like celebrities and especially people in like the more
Mm.
glamorous industries like singing and all
And
that getting killed by
movie
their,
podcasting.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're watching all of you, the zero watching the stream currently.
Yeah.
Uh please don't kill us. Um So yeah, but yeah, like fans basically turning love into obsession, and then when
Mm.
that obsession, when you know, when you have a break from the reality, when the person you've imagined in your head doesn't meet the reality, then it turns into anger, you know,
Yeah.
anger and hatred and eventually, and you know, violence. Um, because I think like, didn't that what happened to John Lennon too? Wasn't the guy who shot him like a big fan of his? Something like that.
Uh, David, what's his name? Mark Chapman or something. Anyway, I'm not 100% sure.
It does happen. Like there's been
Yeah, yeah. I
multiple
think that is
times
basically
where,
yeah what happened. He must have been a fan of him, and then he got it in his head that he was now evil or bad or something. I don't know. Who knows what? I mean, with John Lennon, I don't know. Maybe there was other forces at play there, but I'm not sure.
well, it says according to the interview, Mark Chapman killed him for self glory. So I
Mm.
guess I guess maybe he just thought that I mean, oh, okay. Maybe it wasn't that he was a fan. I don't know where I read that. It says Chapman said he was angered by Lennon's lifestyle and public statements, especially his much publicized remark about the Beatles being more popular than Jesus, and the lyrics of his later songs, God and Imagine. So,
Hmm.
so yeah, I guess he was just thinking that John was getting too pretentious, too self-prideful, and thought he needed to be killed because of that. So that might have been a bad example. But yeah, the Selena story is definitely like very on point to what happened.
Yes.
But
Yes.
and that we're digressing, I think, but that just goes back to what we said. There's a lot of pressure in the
Mm.
entertainment industry, both, you know, pressure from above, pressure from below, the fans. You have to
Yeah,
you have to be this person, and that ties really
yeah,
well into like the idea
yeah,
of identity.
yeah. It's like
Um,
if you know, say you just have a normal job, you have like, okay, you've got like 10 co-workers, then you've got two or three bosses maybe above you. So it's, you know, any average job, maybe there's like 10 to 20 people that are watching you and like, are like, you know, think aware of you and judging you maybe, you know. But then obviously if you put yourself in the spotlight of like the entertainment industry, it suddenly becomes hundreds and thousands of people.
yeah,
And
or millions
yeah,
even.
well, yeah, nowadays millions. And so
Yeah, there's some. Yeah, it does get crazy.
it, it
And what's
it's
funny is that I think almost the opposite was happening in Black Swan.
yeah, yeah,
Is it like mostly what like Toma and Lily were trying to do for Nina was to get her to be her authentic self, to not be so frigid, not be so obsessed with perfection, but to learn to be human, And the sad fact is that Nina just didn't know how to do that in a healthy way. And
mm,
she basically let it absolutely consume her, but it was also being fueled by that desire for perfection. Um,
yeah.
and
It is
that's what
interesting
killed
that
her.
these movies are yeah sort of the inverse of each other in that sense.
Yeah, they're very similar and very different, and it's kind of cool. Actually, even though we're definitely highlighting how Perfect Blue is the better movie, I think these were good movies to pit against each other because it
Yeah,
also just shows what's interesting about both of them too.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. I just wish Black Swan was just slightly more subtle.
yeah, that's that's really my biggest complaint. I thought it had a decent story. I thought it was cool. It's just like very, very, very on the nose with its symbolism. Um, but it's hard to yeah, it is sort of unfair because I mean Satoshi Kon is just a genius. He's like the way he like crafts this like story and the reveals and
Yeah,
transitions is all like so well done. It's kind of hard to ask like other people to try to live up to that. But
yeah,
yes, it definitely could have been more subtle.
yeah. Well, I
I
think
see the comment in the chat.
yeah. Thank
So I
you,
think it's
thank you for your input. Great, thank you, Tree. Um, I think that's pretty much everything we've got to say about both these films.
yeah, I think so.
But yeah, so I think we both definitely recommend just go see Perfect Blue, go watch Perfect Blue, and then I don't know, Black Swan. I guess I just technically don't recommend it. You know, maybe if you wanted to do the flooded cinema challenge and watch them back to back, maybe you'd get more out of Perfect Blue. But
Yeah.
um,
But Black Swan is all right, but you wouldn't really be missing anything if you didn't watch it.
yeah, pretty much. Natalie Portman is very good in it. I'll say that much. I'll give her props.
Yeah. She's always really good, honestly. I love her in movies. In fact, she's also in one of my other top favorite movies, which is Leon the Professional.
Oh really? I'll have
And
to.
I believe that was her debut in filming. I think she
Yes.
was 14.
Yes. It's a
Yeah, man. And I hope
unusual
that
film.
doesn't make people think about me a certain way that Leon is one of my favorite movies because the certain scenes are not the parts I like about it. But
Oh
I
well,
digress.
we'll have to discuss that movie one day, and you can try
Yeah,
and
maybe.
redeem yourself.
I don't know. I feel like if you try to redeem yourself, that it just adds more accusational
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah.
It's like people
Uh,
who try to defend like lolly stuff
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's like you're
Oh,
just gonna bury yourself further. Just don't talk about it.
he did the Fifth Element, right? That guy. He was it the same guy, or is it just I'm just confusing
the
all French?
the director or the
Yeah, yeah.
actor? I'm
The
not sure. They feel very similar.
I swear
I
it's
wouldn't be surprised. Fifth
it's
Element
Luc
was
Besson.
yeah,
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
right.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, Fifth Element's good.
Yeah, I liked the Fifth Element a lot. It was weird but good. Leon. He also did that newer movie Lucy, the one with Scarlett
That
Johansson.
looked horrible.
Yeah, I didn't watch it. It looked I mean, from the trailer, it looked okay. I might watch it at some point, but yeah.
I mean, it just looked retarded. Like she's using 100% of her brain. Like,
Oh, he did the screenplay for Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. That was a terrible
uh,
movie. I hated that so much. Especially because it started out actually really cool and strong, and it just got really dumb. But anyway, those are all different movies for maybe a
yeah.
different time. We'll have to think of what a good pairing for Leon would be, because well, I don't know.
Mm,
I feel like if we talk about that, that's gonna be a weird discussion.
yeah.
Kind of can't avoid talking about all the like Lolita stuff in it. But
Dang. I was gonna say something about the Fifth Element, but I completely forgot. That's okay. We can save that for when we discuss the Fifth Element.
yeah, I don't
Uh,
really remember much of the Fifth Element, so I don't know if I can talk about it. I saw it like a few years ago.
oh, that's okay. Well, we've
I
talked
remember
about
the visuals. It had very stunning visuals, but I don't know
yes,
what I have no idea what the plot was.
yeah. I just like Bruce Willis, I guess.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't remember.
90s, early 2000s Bruce Willis before, like,
Yeah,
yeah, before he stopped caring.
yeah.
All right. We've discussed these two films. I think we've dissected them both pretty well. Thank you very much for coming on, Jerkly, at Space Cowbing. Go follow
Thank
him.
you for having me. That was a lot of fun, and be happy to be on again sometime.
Sounds good. Sounds good to me. All right, I'm going to end the stream now. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Goodbye.
Yeah, have a good night, everyone.